How could one night out turn my whole marriage upside down? I thought it was harmless fun until the next morning, when I came home to a stack of legal documents on the kitchen table and realized my husband wasn't playing games anymore. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The apartment felt suffocating that Tuesday evening. I stood in front of our bedroom mirror, adjusting the black dress I'd hidden in my work bag that morning. The fabric clung to my curves in all the right places. Curves that Evan barely noticed anymore after 8 years of marriage. Going somewhere? Evan's voice cut through my thoughts as he appeared in the doorway, his accountant's tie loosened after another long day at the firm. Just out with Maya and the girls, I replied, not meeting his eyes in the mirror. You know, normal people stuff. Fun. Remember what that is? Evan stepped closer, his reflection joining mine. At 34, he still had that serious look that had attracted me in college, but now it just felt judgmental. Ysoria, you've been going out a lot lately. 3 times this month already. So what? I'm 31, not dead. I turned to face him, crossing my arms. Just because you're content sitting here watching Netflix every night doesn't mean I have to waste away too. It's not about that, and you know it. His voice was measured, controlled, the same tone he used when balancing difficult accounts. It's about us. About Lily. She asked me yesterday why Mummy's always on her phone or getting ready to leave. The mention of our 7-year-old daughter sent a brief pang through my chest, but I pushed it aside. Lily is fine. She needs to see that her mother has a life beyond cooking and cleaning. That's not what this is about. Evan ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture I once found endearing. You're different lately, distant, and these nights out are perfectly normal, I snapped, grabbing my purse from the dresser. God, Evan, you're so controlling. Maya was right. You are trying to keep me locked up in this boring suburban life. Evan's jaw tightened. Maya doesn't live here. Maya doesn't have a daughter who misses her mum. Maya isn't married. Maybe Maya has the right idea, I muttered, immediately regretting the words but too proud to take them back. The hurt that flashed across Evan's face almost made me apologize. Almost. Instead, I pushed past him toward the door. Ysoria, wait. His voice was softer now, pleading. Can we just talk about this? Really talk? I paused at the bedroom door, my hand on the frame. For a moment, I considered staying. Considered sitting down and having the conversation we'd been avoiding for months. But then my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Girl, you better not let him guilt-trip you. You deserve to have fun. There's nothing to talk about, I said without turning around. I'm going out with my friends. I'll be back later. How much later? I don't know, Evan. I'm not on a curfew. I heard him sigh behind me as I walked down the hallway. Lily's door was closed. She was already asleep, thank God. I couldn't handle her innocent questions about where Mommy was going tonight. In the living room, I grabbed my keys from the coffee table. Evan followed me, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floor. Just be careful, okay? He said as I reached for the front door handle. And maybe don't post everything on social media this time. I whirled around. Excuse me, now you're policing my Instagram too? I'm not policing anything, but when my coworkers are seeing videos of my wife dancing with random guys at clubs, it becomes my business. Those were just friends. God, you make everything sound so sordid. Friends whose names you can't remember the next day. Heat rushed to my cheeks. I don't have to justify my friendships to you. Evan stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, more calculating. No, he said quietly. I guess you don't. The way he said it sent a chill down my spine, but I shook it off. He was just being dramatic, trying to make me feel guilty for having a social life. I'll see you later, I said, opening the door. Ysoria. I paused, not looking back. I love you, I hope you remember that." The words hung in the air as I stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind me. As I waited for the elevator, I pulled out my phone and saw that Evan had already opened his dashcam app. The little green dot showed he was tracking my location. Controlling bastard, I thought, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe, just maybe, I was the one in the wrong here. I silenced that voice as the elevator doors opened. The bass thumped through my chest as I stepped into Pulse, the downtown club Maya had been raving about for weeks. The lights were dim, strobing in blues and purples across the packed dance floor. This was exactly what I needed: noise, energy, life. "There's my girl," Maya's voice cut through the music as she appeared at my side, drink already in hand. At 28, my sister had perfected the art of the single life. No husband, no kids, no responsibilities beyond her marketing job and weekend adventures. "You look amazing," she continued, eyeing my black dress approvingly. "Very independent woman who doesn't need a man's permission to have fun." I laughed, feeling some of the tension from earlier melting away. That's exactly the vibe I was going for. Maya led me to the bar, where two of her co-workers, Jessica and Amanda, were waiting with shots lined up. "To freedom!" Jessica shouted over the music, raising her glass. "To freedom!" we echoed, and the tequila burned perfectly going down. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. "How's girls' night?" I showed Maya the message, rolling my eyes. "See what I mean? He can't just let me exist." "Ignore him," Maya advised, signaling the bartender for another round. "Tonight is about you remembering who you are beyond Evan's wife and Lily's mom." The bartender approached, tall, dark hair, sleeve tattoos, and a smile that made my stomach flutter in a way it hadn't in years. His name tag read, Marcus. "What can I get you beautiful ladies?" he asked, his eyes lingering on me. "Surprise us," I heard myself saying, leaning forward on the bar. "We're celebrating." "Oh yeah? What's the occasion?" "My sister's liberation from suburban prison," Maya announced dramatically. Marcus laughed, a rich sound that made me want to hear it again. "Well, liberation calls for something special." He began mixing drinks with practiced flair, occasionally glancing up at me with those dark eyes. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Evan. I declined the call that followed and finally turned the phone face down on the bar. "Smart move," Marcus said, sliding a pink-colored drink across to me. "Sometimes you gotta disconnect to reconnect, you know?" I took a sip, fruity but strong, and felt the alcohol start to work its magic. Exactly. Some people just don't understand the need for space. "Married?" he asked, nodding toward my wedding ring. I looked down at the diamond band, suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Technically," Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "Well, technically married or not, you deserve to have a good time." The music shifted to something with a heavier beat, and Maya grabbed my arm. "Come on, let's dance." I followed her onto the crowded floor, the alcohol making everything feel lighter, freer. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about grocery lists or Lily's school schedule or Evan's disappointed sighs. I was just Ysoria, not the wife, not the mother, just me. We danced for what felt like hours, the music washing over us in waves. Other people joined our little circle, friends of Maya's co-workers, strangers who became temporary dance partners. I felt young again, desirable again. "I need another drink," I shouted to Maya during a brief lull between songs. Back at the bar, Marcus was waiting with a knowing smile. "Having fun?" "The most fun I've had in years," I admitted, surprised by my own honesty. "Good. Life's too short not to enjoy it." He poured me another drink without being asked. "So what's your story? Besides being technically married, I mean." I found myself telling him everything, the monotony of my HR job, Evan's predictable routine, the feeling that I was disappearing into someone else's life. Marcus listened, nodding in all the right places, his attention like a drug I'd forgotten I was addicted to. Sounds like you need to shake things up, he said when I finished. That's what I'm trying to do. Good for you. He leaned closer, and I caught a whiff of his cologne mixed with the faint scent of cigarettes. Most people just accept being miserable. Takes courage to want more. The validation felt intoxicating. When was the last time Evan had called me courageous? When was the last time he'd really looked at me the way Marcus was looking at me now? Dance with me, I said impulsively. Marcus glanced around the bar, then at his manager who was busy with inventory. I get a break in 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes felt like an hour, but finally Marcus appeared beside me on the dance floor. He moved with confidence, his hands finding my waist as we swayed to the slower song that had just started. You're a good dancer, he murmured close to my ear. So are you. I let myself relax into his arms, forgetting for a moment that I was wearing another man's ring. The song ended, but we kept dancing, moving closer together as the next track began. I was vaguely aware of Maya nearby, taking pictures and videos on her phone, but I didn't care. Let her document this. Let there be proof that I was still alive, still desirable, still capable of making a man want me. Marcus's hands were warm on my back, and when he spun me around, I laughed with genuine joy for the first time in months. Other people were watching us. I could feel their eyes, but it only made me bolder. I danced like I was single, moved like I had nothing to lose. Your husband's a lucky man, Marcus said as he pulled me close again. He doesn't seem to think so, I replied, the words coming out more bitter than I'd intended. Then he's an idiot. Simple words, but they hit me like a lightning bolt. When was the last time Evan had made me feel lucky to be with him? When was the last time he'd made me feel like anything other than a burden or an obligation? My phone, which I'd forgotten on the bar, was lighting up with notifications. Through the crowd, I could see the screen flashing repeatedly. I gestured toward the phone. Should probably what? Go back to being miserable? Marcus's grip on my waist tightened slightly. The night's still young. He was right. The night was young, and I was tired of being the responsible one, the boring one, the one who always did what was expected. I left the phone where it was and kept dancing. The fluorescent lights in the HR office felt like needles in my brain as I stumbled to my desk the next morning. My mouth tasted like regret and tequila, and I was pretty sure I was still wearing yesterday's mascara. Rough night? Asked Jennifer, my cubicle neighbor, with a smirk that suggested she already knew the answer. Just had some fun for once, I muttered, turning on my computer and immediately regretting the brightness of the screen. Oh, we saw. Jennifer's tone was loaded with meaning. The whole office saw, actually. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Jennifer turned her monitor toward me. There, in the office group chat, was a photo of me and Marcus on the dance floor. My back was arched, his hands were on my waist, and we were looking into each other's eyes with an intimacy that was unmistakable. Sarah from accounting was there last night, Jennifer explained, not bothering to hide her glee at being the bearer of juicy gossip. She posted it around 11 p.m. It's got quite a few likes. I scrolled through the comments with growing horror. Ysoria knows how to party. Is that her husband? He looks different than in her Facebook photos. Wait, isn't she married to that accountant guy? Girl is living her best life. There's also a video, Jennifer added helpfully. Someone tagged you on Instagram. It's been shared quite a few times. My hand shook as I opened Instagram. The notification count was in the double digits. The video showed me dancing with not just Marcus, but several different men throughout the night. In one clip, I was laughing as a stranger's hands rested on my hips. In another, I was accepting a drink from someone whose face I couldn't even remember. But the worst part wasn't the dancing or the drinking. It was the look on my face. Pure joy, more alive and happy than I'd appeared in any photo with my own husband in years. Oh God, I whispered. Yeah, it's pretty bad, Jennifer agreed with false sympathy. I mean, I'm sure your husband will understand. Some people are cool with that kind of thing. My phone rang. Evan's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. You should probably take that, Jennifer suggested. He's called the office 3 times this morning. With trembling fingers, I answered. Hello? Ysoria. Evan's voice was flat, emotionless. I think we need to talk. I'm at work, I can't. I've seen the video. The words hit me like a physical blow. Around me, the office had gone suspiciously quiet. I could feel my coworkers pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Evan, I can explain. Can you explain why my wife was grinding on strange men while I was at home with our daughter? I wasn't grinding on anyone, I hissed, trying to keep my voice down. I was just dancing. Just dancing. His laugh was bitter. Is that what we're calling it? You're being ridiculous. It was harmless fun. Harmless? His voice rose slightly, and I could picture him in his office, probably staring at his computer screen, with that same video playing on repeat. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. My mother called. My father called. Hell, even my boss asked if everything was okay at home, because apparently this thing has been shared in every social media group in town. My stomach dropped. I hadn't considered that Evan's family would see it, or his coworkers, or, oh God, what if Lily's teacher sees it? What if the other parents? Now you're worried about consequences. Evan's voice was ice cold. Where was that concern last night when you were letting random men put their hands all over you? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Ysoria? Explain it to me, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife forgot she was married. I could feel tears starting to form, but I was too angry to let them fall. Maybe I did forget, okay? Maybe for one night, I wanted to remember what it felt like to be desired instead of taken for granted. The silence stretched between us for so long I thought he'd hung up. Taken for granted, he finally repeated. Is that what I do? Yes, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed. When was the last time you looked at me, really looked at me, the way those men did last night? Those men don't know you, Ysoria. They don't know that you sing off key in the shower, or that you cry during commercials with dogs, or that you check on Lily 3 times every night before you go to bed. They don't love you. And neither do you. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. Not really. You love the idea of me, the wife-shaped person who keeps your life organized and your daughter fed. But you don't love me. Another long silence. I see, Evan said finally. Well, that certainly clarifies things. Something in his tone made my anger falter. Evan, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been taking you for granted, but that doesn't excuse what you did last night. Nothing happened. Something happened, Ysoria. Maybe not physically, but something definitely happened, and the whole world got to watch it. Before I could respond, he hung up. I stared at my phone, my hand shaking. Around me, the office was still pretending to work, but I could feel their eyes on me, could practically hear the gossip already forming. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Don't let him guilt-trip you. You did nothing wrong. Men dance with women all the time and nobody bats an eye. But even as I read her supportive words, I couldn't shake the image of Evan's face when he'd said goodbye last night. The hurt in his voice just now, the way he'd said, I love you, like he was already mourning something lost. Another text, this one from my mother. Ysoria Marie, what in God's name is this video your sister showed me? Call me immediately. Then one from Diane, Evan's mother. We need to talk. And finally, the one that made my blood run cold from a number I didn't recognize. Your husband just saw the video. I looked up to find Jennifer watching me with undisguised curiosity. Everything okay? Fine, I lied, grabbing my purse. I need some air. But as I walked toward the exit, I couldn't escape the feeling that nothing would ever be fine again. The cafe was crowded for a Thursday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of remote workers and stay-at-home parents grabbing their caffeine fix. I sat in the corner booth, nervously stirring my latte while waiting for Maya to arrive. 2 days had passed since the video went viral, and the walls were closing in from every direction. "Sorry, I'm late." Maya slid into the seat across from me, her designer bag hitting the table with a thud. Traffic was insane, and I had to deal with this client who thinks urgent means I should drop everything for his mediocre restaurant's social media campaign. I managed a weak smile. "Thanks for coming. I really needed to talk to someone who doesn't think I'm the devil incarnate." "Oh, please, you're being dramatic. It's 2024, not 1954. Women are allowed to have fun." Maya signaled the waitress for coffee. "Has Evan calmed down yet?" "Calmed down?" I laughed bitterly. "He's barely spoken to me since Tuesday. When he does talk, it's about practical stuff. Who's picking up Lily? When the mortgage is due? Whether we need milk? It's like I'm a roommate he can barely tolerate." "Good, let him sulk. Maybe he'll realize what he's been taking for granted." But even as Maya said the words, I could see the doubt in her eyes. She'd been my biggest cheerleader throughout this whole mess, but even she seemed to be wavering. "Maya, be honest with me. Do you think I went too far?" She hesitated just a moment too long. "I think you did what you needed to do to feel alive again. And if Evan can't handle that, then maybe—" "Maya," a new voice cut through our conversation, cold and sharp. I looked up to see Diane Vane standing beside our table, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the wind outside. Evan's mother had always been polite to me, but I could see the barely contained fury in her eyes now. "Mrs. Vane," I said, half rising from my seat, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm sure you didn't." Diane's voice could have frozen water. "Maya, would you mind giving us a moment alone?" "Actually, I would mind," Maya replied, her own voice taking on a defensive edge. "Ysoria asked me here for support, and she's going to get it." Diane's smile was razor-thin. "Support? Is that what you call encouraging a married woman to humiliate her husband in public? I call it encouraging my sister to have a life outside of being Evan's personal assistant. Your sister has a family, responsibilities, a 7-year-old daughter who's been asking why Mommy and Daddy aren't talking to each other." The mention of Lily sent a stab of guilt through my chest, but I pushed it down. "Lily is fine. This is between Evan and me." "Is it?" Diane pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. The Instagram video was paused on the screen, frozen on a moment where I was laughing in Marcus's arms. "Because this isn't between you and Evan. This is public humiliation. This is our family name being dragged through the mud." "Oh, please," Maya scoffed. "It's a harmless video of people dancing. If Evan's masculinity is so fragile that he can't handle his wife having fun—" "Fun?" Diane's composure cracked slightly. "You call this fun? I've had 3 different neighbors ask me if my son and daughter-in-law are getting divorced. The principal at Lily's school called to check in on the family situation. Evan's boss has been making jokes about keeping him busy so he doesn't have to go home." Each word was like a slap. I hadn't considered the ripple effects, how far the humiliation would spread. "That's not my fault," I said weakly. "I can't control what other people think or say." "You can control your own actions," Diane replied. "Or at least you could have, before you decided to act like a single woman in front of half the town. She is allowed to dance." Maya's voice was rising, drawing looks from other customers. "She's allowed to feel attractive and desired and appreciated." "Not by other men," Diane snapped back. "Not when she's wearing my son's ring and bearing his name." The cafe had gone quiet around us. I could feel every eye in the place watching our drama unfold, probably already composing their own social media posts about the scene. "Maybe we should take this outside," I suggested, my cheeks burning. "No," Diane said firmly. "I'm done being quiet about this. I'm done pretending that what you did was acceptable because it might hurt your feelings to hear the truth." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than shouting. "My son loves you. He has loved you faithfully for 8 years, through your difficult pregnancies, through your job changes, through every mood swing and complaint and moment of dissatisfaction. He works 60-hour weeks to give you and Lily a comfortable life, and he has never, not once, given you reason to doubt his commitment. He's boring, I said, hating how petulant I sounded. He doesn't make me feel special anymore. And what exactly have you done to make him feel special lately? Diane asked. When was the last time you planned a date night? When was the last time you showed interest in his work, his dreams, his feelings? When was the last time you acted like a partner instead of a disappointed customer? I opened my mouth to respond but found I had no answer. That's what I thought. Diane straightened up, her dignity intact despite the public nature of our argument. You want to feel desired? Try being desirable. You want romance? Try being romantic. You want passion? Try bringing some to your own marriage instead of looking for it in strangers' arms. You don't understand, Maya interjected, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. I understand perfectly, Diane replied. I understand that marriage is work, real work, not the kind of work where you get to quit when it gets boring or difficult, the kind where you recommit every day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. She picked up her phone and looked directly at me. Evan is staying with us for a few days. He needs space to think, and frankly, so do you. I suggest you use that time to decide what kind of person you want to be. The kind who honors her commitments, or the kind who throws them away the moment something shinier comes along. Without waiting for a response, Diane turned and walked away, leaving Maya and me sitting in stunned silence. She's just old-fashioned, Maya said finally, but her words rang hollow. She doesn't understand modern relationships. I stared at the table, Diane's words echoing in my head. When was the last time I'd planned something special for Evan? When was the last time I'd asked about his day and actually listened to the answer? When was the last time I'd been the kind of wife I'd want to be married to? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your husband was at the bar today, asking questions. Thought you should know. EM. Marcus. I'd almost forgotten about him in the chaos of the last 2 days, but apparently he hadn't forgotten about me. Who's texting? Maya asked, craning her neck to see my phone. Nobody, I lied, quickly deleting the message. Just work stuff. But as we sat there in the aftermath of Diane's verbal assault, I couldn't shake the feeling that my problems were just beginning. I pulled into our apartment complex parking lot at nearly midnight, surprised to see Evan's car in his usual spot. He'd been staying at his parents' house for 3 days, and I'd started to wonder if he was planning to come back at all. The apartment was dark except for the lamp in the living room. I found Evan sitting at the kitchen table, his laptop open in front of him, papers spread out in neat piles around him. He looked up when I entered, and I was struck by how different he seemed. Calmer, more composed, but somehow more distant than ever. You're back, I said, dropping my purse on the counter. I am. He gestured to the chair across from him. We need to talk. Something in his tone made me nervous. This wasn't the hurt, angry Evan I'd been dealing with since the video surfaced. This was someone else entirely, someone methodical and controlled. Where's Lily? I asked, stalling. At my parents'. She's having a sleepover with Grandma and Grandpa. He closed the laptop and folded his hands on the table. Sit down, Ysoria. I remained standing, crossing my arms defensively. If this is about the video again, it's not about the video. He opened one of the manila folders and pulled out a stack of photographs. It's about these. My blood turned to ice as I saw what he was holding. Photos of me and Marcus at the club, but not just from that one night. There were pictures from 2 weeks ago, when I'd supposedly been at a work happy hour. Pictures from last month, when I'd claimed to be shopping with Maya. How did you... Does it matter how? Evan's voice was eerily calm. What matters is that this has been going on for over a month, and you've been lying to me the entire time. I sank into the chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Evan, I can explain. Can you explain why you told me you were working late on March 15th when you were actually having drinks with Marcus at O'Malley's? He slid another photo across the table. Or why you said you had a migraine on March 22nd and couldn't come to Lily's school play, but somehow felt well enough to meet him for lunch an hour later. Each photo was like a nail in my coffin. There I was, laughing with Marcus at various restaurants and bars around town. In some, we were sitting close together, his hand on mine. In others, we were walking side by side, looking for all the world like a couple. It's not what it looks like, I said weakly. What does it look like, Ysoria? Evan leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen. From where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife has been having an affair. I haven't slept with him. Haven't you? He opened another folder and pulled out printed screenshots of text messages. My text messages. These are from your phone, backed up to the cloud. The cloud account we share, remember? The one you insisted we set up for family photos. I stared at the papers in horror. There were dozens of messages between Marcus and me, dating back weeks. Flirty exchanges, complaints about my marriage, plans to meet up. And there, in black and white, were messages I'd completely forgotten about. Can't wait to see you tonight. Evan's working late again, as usual. You make me feel alive again. I wish things were different. Maybe they can be different. I never acted on anything, I whispered. Didn't you? Evan's voice was still maddeningly calm. You had an emotional affair, Ysoria. You shared our private business with a stranger. You complained about me to another man. You made plans to see him behind my back. You lied to me, to our daughter, to everyone. I was lonely. So was I. For the first time, emotion crept into his voice. Do you think I didn't notice you pulling away? Do you think I didn't try to reach you? I suggested date nights. You said you were too tired. I planned weekend trips. You said we couldn't afford them. I tried to talk to you about us, and you said I was being needy. Tears were streaming down my face now. You didn't mean to get caught. He opened yet another folder. These are bank records, Ysoria. ATM withdrawals from near the club. Charges at restaurants I've never been to. Money spent on clothes and makeup and things you never wore around me. How long have you been collecting all this? Since the first time you came home smelling like someone else's cologne and claimed you'd been with Maya. He looked at me with something that might have been pity. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was that stupid? Or did you just not care enough to be careful? I couldn't answer. The truth was, I had gotten careless and arrogant and convinced that Evan was too boring, too trusting, too comfortable to ever question me. I loved you, he continued, his voice breaking slightly on the past tense. I loved you so much that I made excuses for you, even to myself. I told myself you were going through something, that you needed space, that if I was just patient enough, you'd come back to me. I'm here now, I said desperately. I'm still here. No, you're not. He gathered up the photos and papers with methodical precision. You haven't been here for months, maybe longer. I just refuse to see it. Evan, please. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can what? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't humiliate me in front of the entire town? Pretend you didn't lie to me for months while you carried on with another man? I'll stop seeing him. I'll delete his number. I'll never go to that club again. You'll stop because I found out. Not because you wanted to. Not because you realized you were destroying our family, but because you got caught. He stood up, closing the laptop and tucking it under his arm. My lawyer will be in touch. The words hit me like a physical blow. Your lawyer? Did you think there wouldn't be consequences, Ysoria? Did you think you could just keep living this double life indefinitely? You can't be serious. We have a daughter. Yes, we do, and she deserves better than parents who lie to each other and humiliate each other in public. He paused at the kitchen doorway. She deserves better than what we've become. Evan, wait. But he was already gone, leaving me alone at the kitchen table with the evidence of my betrayal scattered around me like pieces of a life I'd destroyed with my own hands. The law office smelled like leather and disappointment. I sat in an uncomfortable chair across from Evan and his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca Morrison, who looked like she ate cheating spouses for breakfast. Mrs. Vane, she began, sliding a thick stack of papers across the polished conference table. These are the terms of the separation agreement your husband is proposing. My hands shook as I picked up the documents. The legal language was dense and intimidating, but certain phrases jumped out at me. Irreconcilable differences, adultery, primary custody, supervised visitation. Supervised visitation. I looked up at Evan, who was staring out the window at the city skyline. You want to take Lily away from me? I want to protect her, he replied without looking at me, from the chaos you've brought into our lives. Chaos? I made a mistake, Evan. One mistake. Rebecca Morrison cleared her throat. Mrs. Vane, perhaps we should review the evidence that led to these terms. She opened her own folder and began laying out photographs, bank statements, phone records, and social media screenshots with the efficiency of a dealer shuffling cards. But these weren't playing cards. They were the complete documentation of my deception. Your husband's private investigator was quite thorough, she continued. We have evidence of multiple meetings with Marcus Leto over a 6-week period, including times when you told your husband you were elsewhere. We have text messages indicating an emotional affair. We have financial records showing expenditures related to these meetings, and, of course, we have the public documentation of your behavior at the club. Private investigator? I turned to stare at Evan. You had me followed? I had our marriage investigated, he corrected, because my wife was lying to me and I needed to know the truth. The truth is that nothing physical happened. I never slept with him. Didn't you? Rebecca Morrison pulled out another set of papers. These are credit card records showing a charge at the Marriott downtown on March 28th. The same day these text messages show you telling Mr. Leto you wanted to see where this goes. My mouth went dry. The hotel room. I'd forgotten about the hotel room. We'd gone there after drinks, ostensibly just to talk somewhere private. We'd kissed. God, we'd kissed, but I'd stopped it before it went further. Barely. We just talked, I whispered, for 3 hours, in a hotel room, that you paid for. Rebecca's voice was matter-of-fact, but I could see the judgment in her eyes. Mrs. Vane, even if we accept your claim that no physical adultery occurred, which frankly strains credibility, the emotional affair is well documented. The deception is undeniable. The public humiliation of your husband is a matter of record. I looked around the room desperately. Where's my lawyer? Shouldn't I have representation? You're welcome to retain counsel, Rebecca replied. But given the evidence we have, I'd recommend reviewing our offer carefully. It's quite generous, considering the circumstances. I forced myself to read through the key points. Evan would get primary custody of Lily, with me getting supervised visits every other weekend. He would keep the apartment and most of the assets. I would be responsible for my own debts and legal fees. This is insane, I said, my voice rising. You can't just take my daughter away from me because I went dancing. We're not taking her away because you went dancing, Evan said quietly. We're protecting her because you've shown a pattern of deception, poor judgment, and putting your own desires ahead of your family's well-being. That's not true, isn't it? He finally turned to look at me, and I was shocked by the coldness in his eyes. When was the last time you helped Lily with her homework? When was the last time you attended one of her school events? When was the last time you put her to bed instead of going out or talking on the phone with your friend? I opened my mouth to answer, but realized I couldn't remember. The past few months were a blur of nights out, secret meetings, and increasingly elaborate lies. She asked me last week if Mommy didn't love her anymore, Evan continued, because you've been so distracted, so absent, so focused on everything except your family. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not... I do love her. I love both of you. You love the idea of us, he replied, echoing words I'd thrown at him weeks ago. You love having a family when it's convenient, when it makes you look good, when it doesn't interfere with what you want to do. But you don't love us enough to actually be present for us. Rebecca Morrison shuffled through her papers and pulled out another document. There's also the matter of your employment situation. My blood ran cold. What about my employment? Your employer has been made aware of the social media incident and its impact on the company's reputation. Apparently, several clients have expressed concern about the professionalism of their HR department. They can't fire me for what I do in my personal time. They can if it reflects poorly on the company and creates a hostile work environment, which, according to our information, it has. She slid another paper across the table. This is a copy of the complaint filed by 3 of your co-workers regarding inappropriate discussions of your personal life and requests for them to cover for your absences. I stared at the document in disbelief. Jennifer, Sarah, and Mike, people I'd considered friends, had all signed statements detailing my behavior over the past few months. The lies I'd asked them to tell, the personal calls I'd taken during work hours, the way I'd bragged about my freedom and complained about my boring husband. You're destroying my entire life, I whispered. No, Evan said firmly. You destroyed our life. I'm just making sure there are consequences. What about second chances? What about forgiveness? What about the vows we made? What about them? His voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. You broke those vows, Ysoria. You broke them repeatedly, deliberately, and publicly. You made a mockery of our marriage and our family. I can change. I can be better. Can you? Or will you just be more careful not to get caught next time? The question hung in the air like a challenge, and as much as I wanted to protest, to swear that I'd learned my lesson, a small, honest part of me wondered if he was right, if I was sorry I'd hurt him, or just sorry I'd been caught. Rebecca Morrison checked her watch. We'll need an answer by Friday, Mrs. Vane. After that, the offer becomes significantly less generous. And if I refuse? Then we go to court, with all of this evidence, in front of a judge who will be very interested in your fitness as a parent. Her smile was sharp as a blade. I should mention that family court judges in this county take a dim view of adultery and parental neglect. Evan stood up, gathering his copy of the papers. Ysoria, I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about punishing you. This is about protecting Lily and protecting myself from any more humiliation. So that's it. 8 years of marriage and you're just throwing it all away. I'm not throwing anything away. He paused at the door, looking back at me with something that might have been sadness. You already did that. As the door closed behind him, I sat alone in the conference room, surrounded by the evidence of my betrayal and the ruins of my life. Outside, the city went about its business, oblivious to the fact that my world had just ended. But even as I sat there, devastated and defeated, a part of me was already thinking about calling Marcus, about finding someone to comfort me, to tell me that I wasn't the villain in this story. And that, I realized, was exactly why Evan was right to leave me. 3 days later, I signed the papers. By the end of the month, I was living in a studio apartment across town, seeing my daughter every other weekend, under the watchful eye of a court-appointed supervisor. Marcus had stopped returning my calls after the legal papers were served. Apparently, the reality of divorce proceedings was less appealing than the fantasy of an affair. I lost my job 2 weeks after that. The viral video had made me unemployable in my field, at least locally. I ended up working retail at a department store, folding clothes and ringing up purchases for women who looked at me with a mixture of pity and superiority. Maya still insisted I'd done nothing wrong, but even she seemed less convinced these days. My mother blamed Evan for not fighting harder for our marriage, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes when she looked at me. The hardest part was Lily. During our supervised visits, she would ask when I was coming home, when Daddy would stop being sad, when our family would be together again. I had no answers for her, just like I'd had no answers for myself when I'd started down this path. 6 months after that night at the club, I ran into Evan at Lily's school play. He looked good, healthier, more confident, at peace in a way I hadn't seen in years. He was polite but distant, treating me like a casual acquaintance rather than the woman he'd once loved enough to marry. As I watched our daughter perform on stage, I thought about the choices that had led me here. The boredom that had felt so suffocating, the attention that had seemed so intoxicating, the lies that had felt so necessary at the time. I thought about the woman I'd been before that first text to Marcus, before that first secret meeting, before that night at the club that had changed everything. I tried to remember when I'd stopped being grateful for what I had and started focusing on what I thought I was missing. But mostly, I thought about accountability, about the fact that every choice has consequences, every action has reactions, and every betrayal has a price. I'd wanted to feel alive, desired, free from the constraints of my boring suburban life. I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for, and I'd lost everything that actually mattered in the process. This is what accountability looks like.